Thanks, Susan. So before I start, I'm going to take you through a few slides, several of which have got quite a lot of words on them. Really, they're quite dense. Don't worry about that. You will get sent all the slides out, and part of the information that I'm going through is in the slides, really, so that you have that in the future. So don't feel like you have to scrabble and write everything down or anything of that nature. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of the How Good Is Ours. But before I do that, I think I would probably say my view as an inspector is, and I'm sure all of you would be familiar with this, that the core essence of self-evaluation and evaluation around family learning and parental engagement is to build it in from the start. So as soon as you start to think about developing a family learning or a parental engagement program or piece of work, to actually think, okay, what are the outcomes that we really want to achieve here? How are we going to assess that and build that in right from the word go? That makes it so much easier. And I would say that one of the areas that we found on inspection is that people tend to be slightly stronger on assessing the difference it's making to children and to young people than they are the difference it's making to parents and carers. But actually, quite often with family learning, the impacts really can be quite profound for parents and carers. So good to capture that wherever possible as well. And think about things like, is this having an impact on people's employability, on their health, on their literacy, those kind of levels. So as you'll be aware, How Good Is Our Early Learning and Childcare and How Good Is Our School both have a quality indicator around family learning, 2.5, with the themes on engaging families in learning, and that's very much setting out from the start, who is it you're trying to attract into your provision, thinking about equalities issues there, thinking about which groups might not immediately participate, and actually crucially in that as well, thinking about how you're going to build relationships with your parents and carers, because that is the key in many cases to good quality family learning, and certainly to family learning that can be sustained over a period of time. There's a theme on early intervention and prevention, and that's covering both the aspects in terms of how early intervention and prevention can work for the children and the young people, but also in terms of thinking through your relationships with the families that may have additional barriers to participation in place. And then the final theme, which perhaps is the most relevant one for this session, is around the quality of family learning programmes. So again, I would really refer you to that theme and have a real look at that as you're beginning to plan your provision. I've pulled out some of the challenge questions from that quality indicator that I think might be helpful in terms of people asking themselves those questions as they plan their provision. So the core one, what evidence do we have that family learning is improving life chances of the families involved? How well do we match the right programme to the right families? And that one can be a real challenge. And quite often that's where partners, be that CLD, health partners, early years partners, as well as schools, can be really important in getting that full picture of who it is that you really want to attract into the provision. And then how can we demonstrate that families are feeling included, which is, as anyone will say, that's core to a lot of this. And then starting to look at how well do people participate, both within sessions and over the lifetime of provision. What kind of things are they achieving? And that could be changes in things that are accessible, like literacy levels. It could also be things like parents moving into employment and how they are progressing and whether they're actually meeting the aims that they had for themselves as families, as parents, as carers at the start of this. Okay. Oh, excuse me, I'm trying to move it on. The other framework that, again, some of you will be familiar with, some of you won't be so much, is How Good Is Our CLD? Now, I should say that this framework at the moment is currently being written again, so there'll be a 4th edition due out, hopefully at the end of the summer. But I've pulled out some of the statements from the draft document that would be particularly relevant to this. So there's a quality indicator that really looks at equality, diversity and inclusion. And that would be one that would be useful for people that are trying to think through who is it that we want to attract, who is it that would be most aided by family learning, or indeed which parents are we not managing to engage with successfully at the moment that we really want to reach out to. And again, I've just put a couple of the challenge questions in there around how effective are we in taking positive steps to overcome structural and systemic barriers, and to what extent do we have evidence that shows that we're having increased life chances for people. There's a quality indicator called lifelong learning, which includes a theme that's around working with families and intergenerational working. So again, once that document comes out in the end of the summer, that would theme alongside the third theme in 2.7 of How Good Is Our School. Those two themes could be really relevant to you. And finally, there's one that's 6.2. It's about securing improvement. And that would be helpful for those that are working with partners. And we know a lot of CLD providers work with schools to deliver family learning, but also work with third sector providers, health providers, social care providers, a real mix. And again, that would be somewhere that would help you to start to think through how are we setting up our partnership to deliver most effectively. And also how are we setting it up so that as we evaluate throughout the programme and throughout the work, that we're doing that together, because different partners will have different bits of data and evidence they can bring to the table. So it's really important to evaluate together when you've got a partnership piece of work.